So my name's Stephen Goh. This is my third company, and I'll start by sharing two stories. One of them was my first company, which was Australia's first online stockbroking company. In 1998, an unusual fact was that we sent more in wholesale SMS in Australia than there was all retail and wholesale SMS combined as a whole. So in my first company, we had a very early experience in mobile. Bearing in mind the limitations of my first two companies, me and my co-founder endeavored to go and build a new company based around a conversational product. Originally X-Tex, then MiG-33, had an opportunity to go to Silicon Valley, didn't work out there, came over to Singapore, and we had a complete restart about 3 years ago. And in spite of all that, and what has been now a total of a 13-year journey, we have still the same hopes and dreams for the company. We have still the belief that the opportunity is at least as large as it's ever been, possibly even larger still. Now, I love Facebook, and I am substantially, or regrettably, depending on who you speak to, the same person online as I am offline. And that's great, because I grew up with a fantastic Western Protestant upbringing. My parents were backpackers, so I got to live all over the world and see a whole bunch of different things. And I understand that Facebook, as a minority product with only 1.6 billion users, which accounts for about 20% of the world's population, or Tencent, which has about 1 billion users, which only accounts for about 15% of the world's population, that leaves an awfully large number of people on the planet where there can be a right platform business for. It's a very big world. So that's where Migme tends to be. As a student of many startups and businesses, having founded a number and been involved in all sorts of stuff, we believe that there is an opportunity by building a conversational product or conversational platform where we can deliver a range of other products and services through, that we can create a company of immense personal value to touch the lives of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people and build a company of extreme value. I'm going to go through a few slides, so if you'll bear with me for a moment to understand the size and scale of the opportunity and roughly what Mig is, before I give you an example, and hopefully it comes together clearly exactly what the business is, what it intends to be, and what the opportunity can be. So Migme is fundamentally a platform company based around social messaging, and through that delivers a range of valuable services. And we've got a range of niche communities. We believe that basically the opportunity, as Patrick outlined quite clearly earlier, is bigger. There's just simply more people. In the same way that there's an ecosystem grew out of Silicon Valley that is relevant for first world markets, tending towards advertising, biased towards first world elements of consumer behavior. And we believe that there is the secondary ecosystem which proves that yes, you can go and build amazing companies that doesn't have to be based on the Silicon Valley model. If you go and speak to a number of investors in Japan, Hong Kong, and many other places, many people will actually say that in many cases the Chinese model has now exceeded the North American model. If it's social, once again, if you look at WeChat now leading Facebook, if you look at products like Alibaba's Taobao or Meilijuo and the like, which now exceeds basically what eBay is proposing, the center has changed. It is possible to go and build companies of immense value to hundreds and hundreds of millions of people, not based on the Silicon Valley model. And we think that that is what our opportunity is. Once again, this next opportunity, there are simply more people. There's simply more people. And there's simply more people in these markets, and the misalignment from the Silicon Valley model is far larger than you think. Google, 90 million monthly active users of YouTube in India. What an astounding number. 90 million? That's got to be one of the biggest TV stations on the planet. Total of 4 people that Google has in India to support that user base. If you look at Facebook's for par in regards to Internet.org in India, if you look at basically just the sales offices, not the product office, just sales offices in the region, that's not leading in these markets. That's basically our markets that we believe that we can be successful in. These are afterthoughts to everywhere else. Jumping ahead to Mig. So what is Mig? Mig believes that we can build the right platform business based on the right elements of consumer behavior, targeting and unlocking the right amount of commercial value, having the right organization to deliver what we can believe is the next platform company. And for that, I'll touch on the organization first. We've got offices basically in Singapore, Malaysia, Delhi, Mumbai, Jakarta, Yogyakarta, Taipei and Hong Kong. And so it's an organization which is based on the footprint, targeting the footprint that we're facing. And Migme feels like a combination of, and unfortunately I don't have a product demo today, feels like a combination of a Weibo with a gaming front end and a WeChat as a messaging product at the back end. And ideally then, with this format of a product, we are using this to go and build audiences. To sum it all up, and I know that sounds very esoteric, but I think this example here best exemplifies how unique Mig is. Cinta Raman here is a friend of mine, and she is a singer in Indonesia. And something terrible happened to her. Basically, her brother passed away. If you all use Facebook, you might have heard that Facebook has an algorithm. Are you familiar with the algorithm? Raise your hands. Oh, come on, I thought you were on digital. Anyway, Facebook has an algorithm which limits reach. And what happens is, in that limitation of reach, basically that underpins Facebook's fundamental business. It understands who you are, limits reach, and basically goes to other media and other, and that's where its advertising revenues come from. Cinta Raman basically shared this terrible story both on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Mig. On Facebook, she's challenged with having to pay Facebook to tell the story to her fans and her audience. Facebook, if you're a star, if you have a page, as little as only 1% of your fans will actually see your content. In this case here, she would have to pay Facebook so that basically her fans would know that this terrible thing has happened. In Instagram and Twitter, the story goes out, there's some interactions, and that's the end of it. In Mig, basically, it was shared 236 times into Facebook, drew 24,000 people from Facebook into Mig, so we are drawing audiences from Facebook into Mig. Our users sent her 38,000 virtual gifts. We charge anything between a few cents and up to $1,000 for a virtual gift. She gets 50% of that. So what happens here is basically, she has a business model for rich engagement with her fan base. She then used basically the proceeds from that, because once again something terrible had happened, to produce some unique content. In this case, she produced a music video called I Miss You, dedicated to her brother, and basically names 4 Mig users in it. So once again, if I come back to my example where, gee, I'm substantially the same person online as I'm offline, and that's great if I lived in Silicon Valley, you can tell from my accent, I've spent an awful lot of time in Australia, life is great, but for most of the rest of the planet, media, existing media, working with artists, celebrities, all those sorts of things still matters. And the reality is Facebook's model of having an algorithm which narrows reach has an immediate disconnect with the way that it can work with other existing media, full stop. And I'll go through some examples of that later on. Now, we have lots of examples of these. So we have this fabulous woman in former Miss Nepal, and she was taken to a Bollywood event and all that sort of stuff, trying to figure out what dress she was going to wear. Is it going to be red or is it going to be green? And then she received like 30 or 40,000 votes for one dress and another, and she turns up to the event, she plays it back to her users, and she engages with her, and all of a sudden that's several $1,000s of interactive events. There's another example where we've got this rapper in Nepal, and there's this terrible example there where children get sold into brothels. It's the most appalling thing that can ever happen. So he's trying to find the right words for that song. And basically, we raised money for him. We raised about $20,000 through interactive events. Basically, whilst he was trying to take the virtual gifts, turn it together to form a rap song, which he played back and dedicated once again. He was raising money to take children out of these terrible circumstances. So we've got hundreds and hundreds of events which are consistent with this model. If you imagine once again that we are a conversational, social platform with a WeChat background, now bringing in other apps, services, games, virtual gifts, and other interactions uniquely for these countries in a way that Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and none of the other social media does, this is an aligned business. We've been focused on building a very large user base first, getting revenues going, and then ultimately delaying profitability, because the number one thing is that we believe that this is an opportunity to build a massive company now. Along the way, in the last 5 quarters, we've gone from over 10 million monthly active users to over 39 million. We now sit at over 44, and the number continues to grow, seems to be accelerating, which is fantastic. And our cash receipts in the last quarter 2014 was about 570K only. Last quarter this year was about 7.3. We think that at the end of the year we're going to be doing 6 to 8 million US per month in sales, which is pretty cool. And then along the way we've been developing a range of strategic relationships, because to get lock-in, once again, as we are working with existing media and actually unlocking value in the ecosystem, as an ecosystem business, in the same way that Tencent is an ecosystem business, or Line in Japan is an ecosystem business, or DAM or KakaoTalk in Korea, or Facebook in North America, ecosystem businesses, we've been stitching up the same in all the countries we're in. So working with digital medias and creators, so if it's acquiring a HipWe business, which is the BuzzFeed of Indonesia, or Alive Not Dead, which has got 2,500 artists and stars, including Jet Li. Apparently we host Jet Li's website. Out of Hong Kong, relationship with CIA in India, which gives us access to the entire Indian media ecosystem. If it's applications in games, if you are a games developer in the rich ecosystem in China, where you've got 20 social networks, you can deliver your app and they sit across those networks. Outside of the Chinese and East Asian ecosystem, what do you have? Well, you've got Facebook, and once again, its algorithm limits reach. So that gives us unique access to applications and content. We just took on a fantastic new shadow, which is Meitu. Has everyone here heard of Meitu? Raise your hands. I'm surprised that 48% of people here didn't use it, because all the women, something like 900, they have 900 million monthly active users, all 95% of them women. It's the #1 beautification app in the world. Just absolutely fantastic. We've got, we have a fantastic strategic shareholder, Foxconn. Foxconn make directly 60 to 80 million phones every month. Indirectly, they're directly in 1/3 of production of every mobile phone produced on this planet. Every Xbox, every PlayStation, every Nintendo, all of AWS. They build just about half the infrastructure in Silicon Valley. Every bit of hardware, they make everything. We're very fortunate to have them as a shareholder. And then working with them once again with payment providers in a range of different countries, because ultimately we need to collect the cash. And as we've been progressing, having restarted the business in the last three years, we started off with about 1 million monthly active users, and we had our users spontaneously organizing events in country. Just 2 weeks ago, we were getting spontaneous events where 4,000 to 6,000 kids were organizing their own events on the ground in Indonesia and inviting us. So we are a guest to our own events. We had one event where apparently we had to shut a mall down, which is pretty cool. We started off with a few examples of those artists, which I gave earlier. We started with several a week. Now we've got several dozen. Actually, it's a few hundred now. We believe in the next 2 quarters we're expecting to have several thousand. We're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 artists on the platform now. Similar platforms in China, like YY, 9158, Kugo, and many others, the top artists can earn as much as $400,000 or $500,000 per month. We're taking elements of that business model and applying to all these other countries. We had one artist, one girl in the Philippines, who made so much on Mig that she could actually buy a car. We had one blogger last month in Indonesia, where she took a whole family of about 8 people to Singapore for a weekend holiday. We have a top YouTuber in India, Shraddha, who on YouTube only makes $50 a month. On Mig, she made 1,000. That's pretty cool. We also started to work with large format programs, which is why I'm doing, this is so much of an interesting business than being in stockbroking. But we worked on this program called Mega Model in Nepal, which was a clone of America's Next Top Model in Nepal. And we spent $50,000 on this to experiment with it. We ran this for about 6 months, and I think we were in front of about 60% of the population of a country of 28 million people, about 10 to 20 times a week for 6 months. That was fantastic. We learned so much from that. 2 weeks ago, we started rolling this out across the rest of India. So 3 weeks ago, we started rolling this out with So You Think You Can Dance, which is one of the largest TV programs, reality shows in India. And we're going to start rolling this out everywhere else. A similar company using valuable interactions in audiences called YY in China, worked with one reality TV program called Superboy, and in a quarter drove as much as $90 million in sales. We think that that opportunity is replicable in all the countries we're in. We're looking at doing the same, which is pretty cool. And on games, once again, Facebook, look, when I was in Silicon Valley, our co-investor was Excel, and the guy who led the Series A in Facebook, well, we're very fortunate to have him on our board. And we got to understand, how do they build Facebook? And Facebook had multiple generations. One generation was actually in games. You might recall games like Farmville, Texas Hold'em, and Mafia Wars. Those were responsible for over half of Facebook's growth, from 20 million monthly active users to about 120. We are following the same model. Once again, Facebook's algorithm has moved on since then, so it's very hard to distribute or very expensive to distribute games on Facebook. We believe that is a fantastic opportunity for us. So we started with May 2 just recently. We rolled out 6. We've got about 30 new games coming out over the next 2 months. I won't go over this. This is my corporate slides. I apologize for not preparing something a little bit more visually or right for this conference. But fundamentally, we're out to go and build a very unique company. We're not out to go and build a company with 10 million users in Indonesia. I'm not out to go and build a parking meter application for Taiwan. I'm not building a payment company for Cronulla. We are out to go and build the next Tencent. It's as simple as that. We have a very unique organization that's behind it. If it's the right shareholders, if it's Foxconn, which makes every bit of hardware in India. Last year, they announced a $5.5 billion plan to produce 200 million handsets, or 95% of every mobile phone produced in that country. If it means getting relationships with CIA, which means that we have access to all of Bollywood. So you can imagine we've got Bollywood on one side, hardware on the other. What an opportunity that is for us. It's about getting the right organization. You can tell from my accent, I'm both Australian, but I'm also an Asian backpacker and traveled everywhere. We also have a rich organization. We have a new chief operating officer we just started, Craig White, who used to be the MD of MIH. MIH is the company that has 30% of Tencent. Very fortunate he's come on board. My co-founder, Mei Lin, launched a game called Candy Crush. She's responsible for our games program, which is pretty cool. We have 250 people, 30 nationalities in our organization, which are behind this as an opportunity. And then lastly, we're just really focused. That's me on a beach. That's me 3 hours outside of Surabaya, just hanging with some of our users. Last November, I was coming down from the Lower Manthang, which is an Upper Mustang, which is smack bang in the middle of the Himalayas. And then just as we were coming in GPRS range, getting 500 bytes per second, that's 500 bytes per second on your phone. Basically, just hanging in the kitchen, there were 8 other MIG users in that kitchen, and we actually ran a quick impromptu focus group, which is pretty cool. So once again, thank you very much. MIG is an unusual company. And I hope you all follow us. Thank you.